And the reading today is Exodus 20, verses 1 to 19. And God spoke all these words: I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither nor you, your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honour your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbour. You shall not covet your neighbour's house. You shall not covet your neighbour's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbour. When the people saw the thunder and lightning, and heard the trumpet, and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled in fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, Speak to us yourself, and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us, or we will die.
We have reached the third in our series of Living Hope, and today is when relationships break. And there are many different types of relationships: parent-child, husband-wife, siblings, friendships, teacher-pupil, work colleagues, classmates, neighbours, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, housemates, if you're sharing a house. What I did notice is we tend to call people mates if they're kind of people we're forced to be with. So you don't pick who's in your class at school, but they're your classmates. You don't necessarily pick who you're sharing a house with if you're in a house of multiple occupation, but they're your housemates. Only when you get to work do they become colleagues, but your mates. And then we have our chosen friends, people that we want to spend time with. And then we have something I learned a few years ago, our forced friends, people we have to spend time with. They might be our work friends, or our schools or college. People we didn't necessarily choose to be with, our forced friends. But we still have to get on with them. We still have to be able to cooperate and get on and go, okay. There's different circumstances and different reasons why we're in relationships. Maybe our forced friends are actually our neighbours. We have to get along with them because we have a shared driveway to our house. Maybe we have people that are much more like acquaintances. We say hello and carry on with the day. Pass the niceties, ask the weather, but don't actually go any deeper. We still have to relate to people. Relationships is more than just husband and wife. We are in relationship with everybody we meet, one way or another. With the people we grow up with the people we spend time with. We have to be able to relate to them. And when they break down, it breaks down. And it impacts more than just us. It ripples out and it affects much wider. And when it breaks down and it's a relationship that we have previously felt safe in, the emotions that we go through, the grief, the anger, the confusion, the hurt, the pain, the despair, all those emotions that we talked about last week when Rob was speaking on grief, are all there when a relationship breaks down. The emotions of a divorce have actually been linked to the same emotions as the death of a loved one. But the difference is you still have to get on with the person you're divorcing, especially if there are children involved. Currently in the UK, about 42% of marriages end in divorce. And 1 in 5 families experience estrangement of a family member, whether that's a child that's chosen to cut the parents off or the parents that have chosen to cut the child off. Between 27% and 36% of people are currently in a dispute with their neighbours over things such as parking, noise and boundaries. 1 in 5 homeowners will have a conflict with their neighbours over a boundary, most of it over a very small bit of land. All relationships, whether they're romantic or platonic, can be healthy, toxic or abusive. Now, a toxic relationship is one where both sides are mutually contributing to the cycle of negativity. It can be where one person is mainly negative. There are poor communication styles, an imbalance in relationship, isolation, the feeling like you're walking on eggshells, constant criticism, and the feeling that you are being dismissed and your reality is being denied. Ultimately, it's a relationship that causes more stress than joy. All abusive relationships are toxic. But not all toxic relationships are classified as abusive. You see, an abusive relationship is one that is described as being intentional in its abuse. Systemic control or coercion, where one person holds the power over another person, and their behaviour reinforces that power imbalance. We're going to watch a bit from the film, The Banshees of Inisherin. And I just need to give a language warning. It's a raw film. I don't know if anybody's seen it at all. It's Irish, so there's a few Irish swear words. But here, the film starts at the very beginning with a relationship breakdown. And the main characters are Padraig and Colm. Colm has decided he no longer likes Padraig. And we're going to see a little bit from the beginning and an edited bit, which hopefully won't give too much of the plot away should any of you decide to watch it. Could we have the video, please? Hurt people hurt people. This is a film about relationship breakdown. And that bit is near the end, but not quite the end. It starts with "I don't like you." But the pain and the hurt runs deep. And the hurt grows bigger and the reaction and the pain and the response goes deeper. And the voice you heard is Podrick's sister. She's writing a letter and pleading with him to stop, to bring an end to the conflict. Now you may be wondering why I chose the 10 Commandments for our reading. Why that and not another passage? I mean, the Bible is full of conflict. It's full of hurt people hurting people. It's full of relationship breakdowns. I mean, we can go back to the beginning of Genesis and just get to Genesis 13 with Adam and Eve and a relationship breakdown with God. And by the time we've got to Genesis 4, we have murder on our hands and sibling rivalry and jealousy, and then revenge killing and violence, with each act of vengeance increasing. So that by the time we've reached the end of Genesis, we've had one brother sold into slavery by their brothers. We've met in toxic and abusive relationships. We've met slavery. We've met rejection. We've met every form of relationship breakdown. And that is just in Genesis. And as we look closer at the Bible, what we find, it is a document on the human condition. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. It doesn't hide away from our worst traits, of which there are many. As you progress through the Bible, you discover that it just carries on. One relationship breakdown followed by another. One abusive relationship followed by another. One toxic relationship followed by another. And there are always consequences. There are always ripples that come out to the community around. It never just stays with the two that are breaking up, that are fighting, that have fallen out. If you imagine when you're in a school playground and friendships break up, very quickly others are drawn in to take sides, to become part of what is going on. And so the ripple effect goes on out and impacts communities. But here at the 10 Commandments, here is the starting point for how we should be living. You see, here God has already put into action his rescue plan for humanity. The rescue plan for the relationship between humans and God. He has chosen a broken family. One that actually shows how not to live really well. One that shows how not to be a parent. One that shows how not to show loving kindness to your wife or their servants. One that shows how not to relate to your siblings. One that shows how not to behave really well. But equally, one that shows that God still wants a relationship with us. And so here, this toxic family have been enslaved in Egypt. Having gone there to find their rescue, they are now slaves. And God has come in and rescued them out of an abusive relationship. And as they're starting their journey of learning what it is that it means to follow God, what it means to live as God intended, he starts by giving them the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are the start. They're not the end. The first half, perhaps the simplest way for us to actually understand them is to split them in two. And the first half seems to relate to our relationship with God, and the second half to our relationship with each other. But that's oversimplifying the 10 Commandments. However, the first half actually shows us not only how to relate to God, but how we should be relating to each other too. Because if we actually understand the fact that we are relating to God, our Creator, and we are made in his image, then everybody we meet is equally made in the image of God, and so also should be treated well. So when we are interacting negatively, whether it's with ourselves or with other people, we are interacting negatively with God. When we damage ourselves and when we damage each other, we are damaging our relationship with God. And when our relationships break down, it doesn't just impact us. It impacts our friends, our family, their children, their parents, the grandparents. It goes on and on and on. The destruction, the death that comes from broken relationships. And then the second half of the 10 Commandments. We are often the ones that people will quote the most. Do not steal. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Don't lie. Don't covet what your neighbour's got. These are the ones we kind of find easy to go, yeah, I'm good at that. I haven't murdered anyone today. And I haven't stolen anything. And I haven't committed adultery. I'm sure a little white lie doesn't count. We're quite happy with these ones. It all feels quite simple, quite easy, quite manageable. Until you actually jump forward a bit and actually see what God was meaning when Jesus starts teaching on it. And he says in Matthew, "You have heard that it is said to people long ago, 'You shall not murder,' and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, 'Raka,' is answerable to the court, and anyone who says, 'You fool,' will be in danger of the fire of hell." That's taking murder to actually how we're thinking about somebody or how we're speaking about somebody. That's taking the 10 Commandments and making it even more serious. Because I may well have called a politician occasionally a fool. Or I may have held my brothers, my own brothers, and been quite angry with them and shouted at them and lost my temper. But at no point did I realise that that is the same as murder. What about the others on this list? How am I behaving? Can I honestly say that I haven't stolen somebody's time? That I haven't belittled somebody with my thoughts? Can I honestly say that I haven't given false testimony when I think about things? Or that I haven't coveted my neighbour's house? And I may not actually want his ox or donkey, but I might have desired the car, or the holiday, or their lifestyle. And then there's the honouring your mother and father. Have I always behaved in a way that's honourable? And does it really mean that I now need to just obey whatever they say? What about when they have been unhonourable themselves? It all gets very complicated, this relationship thing. In Exodus, the honouring of your mother and father actually related to the adult child and not the little children. It was about caring for your parents in a society where you didn't have care homes. You didn't have support. But we do. Is it different now? Do I honour in a different way? How do I relate to my own parents? How do I relate to my children? What is this all going to mean? Paul expands on it and puts some responsibility back onto the parents and young children. In Ephesians 6 he says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honour your father and mother, which is the first command with a promise, so that it may go well with you, and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." it would be right to say also mothers should not also exasperate their children. You see, the family unit is the starting point of God's plan for how we should treat each other and how we should live. It's about building a bond and a relationship that is loving and kind. It's about being able to support each other. But because we struggle, that unit often breaks down. And then what we've learned as children, we take out into the workplace, we take out into the playground, we take out in our relationships with other people. And that pain and that hurt that we have travels with us. You see, emotions run high when we are hurting. And in our hurt and anger, we are more likely to hurt, to damage each other's and ourselves. And sometimes we need to walk away. We need to recognize where we are hurting and we are putting others at risk of damaging them. And we need to be the ones to walk away, to take responsibility for our own actions. God removes the Israelites from the relationship they had with the Egyptians because it was damaging. It was costly. It was killing them. And when a relationship breaks, there is always a cost. And the first relationship that was broken was ours with God. And from there on, it has plummeted. For God, the cost of repairing that relationship was the cross. His desire to repair and heal the broken relationships that started back in Genesis finishes with the cross. His desire to bring an end to the cycle of pain and destruction caused by broken relationships would eventually cost Jesus everything. The 10 Commandments and all the commandments that have followed afterwards show us how far we have actually fallen from God's original plan of what a relationship should look like, of how we can live together in healthy relationships. Jesus, through his birth, his life, death, and resurrection, made a way to restore our relationship with God and with each other. There will always be consequences to how we treat each other. We can be part of God's plan to bring an end to the cycle of hurt and pain. Or we can be like Padraig and just escalate it because we're hurting, and so we hurt. We can choose to respond differently, and it's not easy. And sometimes it means that we have to walk away from a broken relationship. We have to learn to resist hurting them back. We have to choose to speak differently, to behave differently. But even with those that we do not like or we hold different views from, we are still called to see them in the image of God. To remember, Jesus died for them too. Now, Mother Teresa has often been quoted as saying this, but actually she had it on her wall, and it's not known who said it. But it goes like this. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. When you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you will do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Jesus calls us to follow him. And perhaps the hardest thing to do, that he asks us to do, is to love our enemies. And when our relationships break down, often the person we have loved and cared for the most becomes the person we love to hurt the most. We have to continue loving them anyway. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you love us anyway. You love us no matter what we have done, how much pain and hurt we have caused you. You still love us anyway. Help us to love those that we are struggling to love. Help us to show mercy where mercy is needed. Help us to show grace where grace is required. Help us to walk away and not respond out of hurt and pain. Help us to love as you love anyway. Amen.